I requested this test. I abused PDs. I did this. I did that. And you're saying no? Put that in my file. That way, if something happens, it's going to look bad on them. Coach Greg and Antoine Vaillant has recently released a video, says he quits. You may or may not know he's an IFBB professional bodybuilder. He's in his early 30s. He had a calcium score test, basically a heart scan or a dye test or whatever, and his blood work and so on. And it came back that he might have a heart attack in 3 to 5 years. That's basically what they're giving him.
My section of age and, my 99th percentile, whatever, that I would have a heart attack, a possible heart attack within 3 to 5 years. Like, what the hell?
He was in the 99th percentile for how bad your heart could be. Essentially, it's not good. And so recently he's made a video saying, I quit.
So of course I'm doing everything I can now to bring it down, but it would still not go down. So I had to make a big decision.
And the last straw was his blood pressure was in the 140s, and that is taking telmisartan twice a day. Probably butchered the name, but it's a blood pressure medication. It lowers your blood pressure. As you know, when you're taking PDs, especially if you're abusing it, oftentimes a side effect is higher blood pressure. If you have a genetic predisposition, you're taking in a lot of sodium, you're pushing the food, you're having cheat meals, bulking up, you weigh a lot, your blood pressure is probably going to go up. This was the case with Antoine Vaillant. He said enough is enough. And so what did he quit? Nicotine.
My doctor, Dr. Dwayne, said that, you should stop it for the cholesterol and the cardiovascular system and the arteries. It would be better if you don't take nicotine. It's all right. I stopped.
I was 100% sure that he said he was quitting bodybuilding. It's not the case. He's quitting nicotine. And after quitting nicotine in a week, his blood pressure has already gone down dramatically. He said it was able to drop down to 110 or 120. And just so you know, he has in fact been trying to control his blood pressure as best as possible. But even in the off season, even when doing cardio, he still noticed that the best he could do is get it down to about 130. And you're thinking, well, that's not so bad. Consider this guy is close to 300 pounds and over 6 feet tall. It's a lot of weight. And 120 over 80 for most people, that tends to be the ideal. But if you're pushing PDs and doing different things like that, you don't want to risk your blood pressure. That's one thing that's really bad.
If you're a big guy, you're bodybuilding, or if you're just, maybe vaping, I just don't recommend it for people who are similar situation as me.
And one thing I like to point out is this. If you have to rely on drugs to undo the damage of other drugs, aka if you have to take blood pressure medication to combat the sides of steroids, you probably shouldn't be taking the steroids in the first place. It's one thing to take a drug to mask the other one, but wouldn't it be a lot better to just stop the drugs altogether? And I know we all have our own decisions, and it's his life to live, but it's also your life to live.
If you're over 250 pounds and you already have high blood pressure, maybe you should think about stopping nicotine.
If you have high blood pressure and it's high because you're abusing PDs, then perhaps think again. Is it actually worth it? And so if you remember, I did a video on Brandon Harding. He was also taking telmisartan to lower the blood pressure. So remember, this is a doctor-prescribed medication that Brandon is taking because his doctor would feel that it's more important to control his blood pressure than to not take it. When you're prescribed medication, it's because the doctor thinks it's of more benefit than of harm. But let me ask you this. If you're taking something, steroids, which is causing high blood pressure, do you think it's a good idea to just take something else to mask the negative side effects of what you're taking? Or would it be smarter to stop taking the thing that's causing the problem in the first place? Antoine's maybe 6 years older than Brandon. Is this not foreshadowing? Is this not perhaps predictive of the future? If you have blood pressure problems and you're abusing PDs, pushing insulin, cheat meals, bulking up, gaining 40 pounds in a month in the off season, what strain do you think that's going to be in the heart? Brandon Harding, I think he's 6'2", big guy. It's not healthy. Remember, the greater the size of the body, the more strain it is on the heart. And the heart, it doesn't care if it's fat or muscle. If you're a big person, you need to be extra cautious. You need to eat even healthier. You need to be even more adamant to do your cardio.
I would only be able to bring it down to 130, and I use the breathing, relaxation to do that.
If he relaxes, takes some deep breaths, perhaps meditates or does yoga, it can go down to 130s. But for the most part, His blood pressure is not going to be as low as it is while relaxing completely relaxed.
And then I did think it afterwards, like, I won't bother, right? It's like, I know it's going to be high from the food and the digestion, and the sodium. So I sleep, and then the next morning I take it, I can only get low as 130.
And he said in the video, I had my cheat meal, and then I got my blood pressure, and it was up again. And I'm thinking, you just got the news that you might die of a heart attack in 3 to 5 years, and you're having cheat meals. I mean, to me, if you're even thinking about having cheat meals with that kind of news, I just don't know what could stop you. He clearly needs to lose a lot of weight. The more weight he loses, the likely the better, up to a point. I'm not telling him to get to 150 pounds. But he was 308 pounds, I believe, and I think he's down to around 280. But cheat meals. Why are we having cheat meals? Why are we eating extra calories? Why are we trying to gain weight? Perhaps he was over dieting, perhaps, and he just needed the cheat, but why have cheat meals? He also stated he's cutting down his sodium from, I think it was a 1/4 teaspoon to 1/8 of a teaspoon. Why don't we just not add any sodium? Why are we adding sodium? Are we trying to get better pumps in the gym? Is it to salt the food to make it taste better? There's already enough salt in almost all the foods we're eating. You have to have a hard time to not eat enough salt. If I had that kind of news, I'm just thinking I would do everything and anything to make it better. I'm just thinking if that same news were given to me, I would do everything in my power to make sure that I live as long as humanly possible. And so you have to respect Antoine for making these videos. He could be keeping a secret. He doesn't have to come out and say all these things. People are often going to judge somebody for what they're doing, the actions they're taking, judging him for what he's trying to do, and that is to help people. Do you know how many people are getting heart scans, tests, EKGs, blood work, and so on because of Antoine Vaillant? Even myself, I'm asking my doctor, trying to get a dye test, get a scan, get all these things done to see how healthy I really am. Just because I race bicycles and I eat healthy doesn't mean I don't have this damage. You're not going to feel it. You can't sense it. My blood pressure is perfect, but how do I know I never did a bunch of damage from all the years of abuse that I've personally done? Some of my friends, they're also getting it done. Very difficult in Canada. You have to book an appointment with your doctor, go in. Mine's in a month from now. And so you need to be adamant. You need to be proactive with your health. I had to demand getting a colonoscopy exam, and it's been a year since I first asked. Went to the doctor 5 times before I get it. Had to travel to get the scan. And so if you want it bad enough, you have to be proactive for your own health, because you never know. What if you don't get that test? And I get it. Ignorance is bliss. It's fun to not know, because what if you get that bad news? It's not going to be fun. Who wants bad news? But if you get the bad news now, you can do something about it. You can make changes, and those changes could, in fact, save your life. So if it's worth it to you to live a long and healthy life, get tested. Go to your doctor. Demand the test. And if they won't give it to you, go to another doctor. Demand. Put that in my file. I requested this test. I abused PDs. I did this. I did that. And you're saying no? Put that in my file. That way, if something happens, it's going to look bad on them. We need to be proactive with our health. We need to do the things that we can do to ensure that we're here for the longest time. It shouldn't be, oh, you're 60 years old, you're 70, it's time to do a test. 35, 40, why not? How can it be harmful to get tested sooner rather than later? And so I'm wishing Antoine the best. I really, really hope he goes natural or just goes on HRT doses. He can obviously still compete. He won't be as big, but he'll be healthy. No one wants to see Antoine leave this earth sooner than he needs to be. Appreciate him putting out these videos, sending the message, trying to tell people, hey, quit nicotine. It's not just nicotine, though. It's also steroids. Nicotine's a start. I'm sure it's helping him. Obviously, if you're abusing nicotine, you're doing steroids, you're doing different things, be careful. It's your body, it's your health, and in it here. GregDoucette.com for coaching. Greg Doucette, IPP Pro. Check out one of the bloops, the one above the ski hill over there. Also, harder than last time supplements. You can get terkestrone, the Seco bars. I've been eating a ton on the slopes here. My legs are burning. There's no cardio here. It's so simple, but man, my legs are sore. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment for the algorithm, and until next time, I am out.